So I recently had a couple of incidences that kind of prove this point that we tend to make things bigger in our head than they actually are. So I'm going to share two of those situations with you because I think that it's worth mentioning that we do this all the time whether we think about it, and it's like the anticipation that kills us. So the first example of this is when I spoke at my friend's memorial. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, any of the ones in the last couple of weeks, I talked about my friend who passed away. And we had the memorial, and because I was the small group leader for him, I was, he was a member of our Bible study, and I was the small group leader. I spoke at that memorial, and now it's not that I've never spoken before in front of anyone before, like ever in the past. However, it's still that fear of public speaking that kind of gripped me, right? And I've heard that for some people, the fear of public speaking is actually a greater fear than the fear of death. That I could totally see as being true. But the idea of having to speak in front of dozens of strangers, in front of, at least over 100 people that I didn't know, just gripped me. And so I wrote out my script, and I actually, practiced it many, many times. And eventually, when that day came, and I knew that I had to speak, I started getting that feeling in your gut, that feeling that that you know you're about to do something that just grips you with fear. I had to use the bathroom like multiple times. I had to basically, I just wanted to walk out and turn around and leave, and it didn't matter. The one thing that kind of reminded me that actually, the one thing that kind of got me through it was just remembering that it wasn't about me, right? I was going up there to speak about my friend, and all of these people that were expecting me to speak, they weren't expecting me to speak about myself. They were expecting to hear about this man that they knew and loved and admired. And so that really helped me to kind of get through that event. And, once I was up there and I was speaking, it was not that big a deal. And afterwards, a lot of people told me I did really well, and they said that I did a great job, and they really enjoyed listening to that. And again, it was only validation that it needed to be done. But afterwards, I felt so silly because I had made it about me, and that thing that I had built up in my head of being this big thing really was not. I mean, I spoke for maybe 5 minutes, but it was on my mind for weeks leading up to that. So let me give you another example of something that I went through yesterday where I was just dreading it because I had it in my head that this was a big deal. I had it in my head that this thing was bigger than it really was. And so my son Benjamin has autism. My son is on an IEP for his school because there are certain things that he needs, obviously, to help make him successful. And we had that meeting yesterday for his school because while my son is doing well, there are things that aren't doing that great. And so it came time for this IEP, and we kind of knew the direction of the IEP, and we already had in our heads that we were going to be set in this in what we wanted and all of these things. But we had it built up in our head because we kind of knew the outcome of the meeting before we even went in. And my wife and I were dreading this meeting, for weeks because we kind of knew what was going on. Now, my son does really well academically, but he also struggles socially. And we kind of knew what the outcome was going to be before we even went, and we just, I think, didn't want to face that. And so we made this thing out bigger than it needed to be, and we didn't want to do it, but eventually we had to do it. And we had our meeting, and it was a long meeting. And eventually, we kind of worked through that with the people there, and we vented our frustrations and our feelings and our thoughts, and they gave us honest feedback, and we talked for a long time and eventually came to a resolution. And the resolution was exactly what we thought it was going to be. And in the end, I actually felt more relieved than frustrated afterwards, because I had built it up in my head that this thing was such a big deal, when in the end it really wasn't as big a deal as we made it. And it may sound silly that that was the case, but it is what it is. But essentially my point out of all of this is that, we make these things out to be bigger in our heads than they really are. And we I think we overthink things, and it makes us want to push them off, or it makes us not want to face them, or it just grips us with fear until that happens. But really, what are we so afraid of? So I guess my overall arching theme for this video is just that the things that you're afraid of, the things that you're afraid to confront, usually are not as big a deal as you think they are. And even if they are, worrying about them is not going to make it any better. You may as well just kind of go into it expecting to get it over with and be done. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, rate, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. Take care.